my friend PJ Benoit. How are you, sir?
Woo! Hello. How are you, buddy?
I am well. It was a nice weekend. I spent it with beloved people, including my daughter and grandchildren, and it was lovely.
Oh,
How
that's
about you?
so sweet.
Yeah.
Let's see. You know what? To be honest, really laid back weekend, and
Yeah.
definitely needed. Definitely needed.
Yeah. Sometimes we
Balls
need
in the
those.
air. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about. I'm all about the looking after yourself and doing the reset. And if you can't do it every weekend, at least try to do it as as often as possible because it's good for your mental health.
It sure is. It sure is. Well, I start most of my days, weekends included, with a meditation. I get up, I drink a tall glass of water, ice water, something I read once apparently helps. And then I meditate. Sometimes only 10 minutes, other days 20, 25. And it sets my day off, the right way. It just gives me peace and presence. So that's how I deal with my need to, feel settled.
Yeah.
Do you have a routine that you follow to, what's your way of finding your center?
Um, Finding my center. Let's see. I wake up, I rush kids around if needed, and then I drink the equivalent of a pot of coffee, and
Hmm.
then get at it. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I have tried meditation before. I think it is a fantastic tool to use, and I you're reminding me I should do that more often for sure.
Well, you should do something. There's no should, by the way. As someone that I once knew would say, you shouldn't should all over yourself. But choose to do things that give you peace. And some people enjoy exercising, walking. Meditation is one of many ways. I find it useful and impactful. And let's introduce our guest today. He's a wonderful guest. It's actually you. You are our guest today, PJ. How does it feel to be on the other side of the mic? You,
Terrifying.
you did that to me, so I'm excited to do it to you.
It's absolutely.
Well, don't be terrified. You're in good hands. So let me introduce my colleague and, frankly, much more importantly, my friend, Peter John Benoit, who's been through it all. And that's evidenced by the nicknames that he has. Of course, PJ, which all of you are familiar with. And now this is according to him, for the record. I just want to be clear that everything I'm about to say next is according to the man. Okay. He's also known as Stud, Dude, Badass, Lemming, and DJ Saucy Loins.
That's all very.
Of course, I also think of you as Ed McMahon.
Of course.
Although as a Chicagoan, I'd bet you'd probably much rather be another McMahon, which would be Bears legend Jim McMahon.
Yeah, without the pencil on the eye. Yeah, that would.
Without the pencil in the eye, with less. I mean, although you'd look really good with dark glasses. Remember, he always would have dark
That's
shades
true.
on.
He
Jim
did.
McMahon. That
And
was
the
his. That
headband.
was his signature move. That's
Love
right. The headband. I forgot the headband. PJ has been at the bottom of companies all the way to the top, from the smallest startups to some of the largest corporations globally. He's been ensconced, the word that I love, ensconced in domestic and international transportation and logistics his entire career. He's been involved in many entrepreneurial adventures, some, of course, related to his transportation logistics background, others not. He has done some really neat things, which we'll talk about, including launching his own custom-made denim company, Me Jeans, that at its height was selling millions of dollars in jeans per year. He's currently running a Unishippers franchise. You are all familiar with it. It's www.shipwithpj.com, our key sponsor. He's run social media for the largest MMA organization in the Midwest. That sounds interesting. He's been a radio DJ, advice columnist, podcast creator, producer, and host. He even appeared on Shark Tank, where he tragically bombed.
Yes.
Trust me, we'll be talking about that, PJ. He is also an award-winning competitive barbecue team member.
Damn.
Nice. Not to mention co-host of this awesome podcast.
Yeah.
Above all else, his greatest accomplishment has been his excellent children and his incredible home life with his truly rock star romance rom-com author wife, Kara Tanamachi, also known as Kara Lockwood. And his only unshakable goal growing up was to be the greatest dad he could be to his children. And although he tells me he has never been perfect, and seriously, PJ, who the hell has been? You've done your best, and you continue to do your best every single day. So, PJ, I'm so glad to turn the mic on you and have you share your incredible, interesting, and funny story and your wisdom with the Braving Business audience today. So welcome to our, as in your and my podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Where's my applause button? I know I have one here.
You really should have. We need sound effects. You know, at one point you had told me we would have sound effects, and we haven't had sound effects. I think we need them.
This one. Oh, crickets. Yeah, I have that one.
You have crickets? All right. Well, crickets it is. Maybe we can make that a little bit more engaging, our sound effect as we go. But
I have applause. I don't remember which button
you do. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Well, don't press random buttons. You never know. You know, we don't want any inappropriate sounds. Yeah, PJ. So you've been involved in a number of entrepreneurial ventures. Obviously, transportation, logistics, custom-made denim. You even made teriyaki sauce. Yep. Your family has a significant, rich entrepreneurial background, especially your great grandfather, later your father. Can you tell us their stories, and also how did these stories and experiences inspire you towards entrepreneurship?
Wow. Yeah, my mom and my dad both were entrepreneurs in their own right. Dad a little bit more so in the full American dream, kind of, you know, building a company from the ground up and having it go global and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's been I've been lucky enough to have the sense within myself that anything is possible, right? That if you really work at it and you really want to go after it, then just go after it, and then let the chips lay where they fall. Because if you don't try, then you'll never succeed, right? So, yeah, my great grandfather developed a sealant in my great grandmother's bathtub up in Sheepshead Bay, New York, back at the turn of the century. And in 1909,
was it accidental, or did he intentionally do it?
I think it was intentional, because he was a chemist, and so he was just working in the bathtub, and he created a seal for bikes where the tire would fit to the rim, but you know, because obviously bikes were big back in those days. And so they launched a company called Permatex back in 1909, and Permatex then grew to be a global chemical and automotive company in its later years. So it was really kind of cool. My dad inherited the company when he was 26. Never went to college. He just got a company. God bless him. And he really was instrumental in helping it propel to where it was before it sold to Loctite Corporation in 1972. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
And how did that inspire you? How did having a grandfather or great grandfather with that type of track record, and a father who inherited a company and then grew it into a multinational corporation, how did that inspire you?
Well, there's a high standard to hold, right? Like that's you know, when you have someone in your family that's that successful, what are you gonna do, right? Either you're gonna try to rise to the challenge and do better, or you're gonna do better in your own right in some other direction, or you're just gonna, you know, not accept the challenge. I tend to accept challenges. So for me, it was more about what did I want to get out of life? Excuse me. What did I want to get out of life that was important to me? And, you know, I saw that my father really sacrificed everything for the company. And that means time with his kids, time with his wife, the whole deal.
How'd you feel about that? I mean, as you look at it now, I mean,
sure.
Do you look at that with admiration, criticism? What?
No, that's what made me want to be a great father. Right. So when I grew up, I was like, I don't care what job I do. I can do anything. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to be a great dad. And there's, you know, of course there's something admirable about that. Also, it's really short-sighted, because it's very easy to have a child, but to be a great dad is a whole other issue. And so when my daughter was born for the first time, I remember looking at her like, oh my gosh, you know, my life's goals are complete. Now what?
Mhm.
Right. So it became like, now it focused from off of me. You know, I just want to be a great dad, try to, you know, be the best dad that I can. That's still going, but then it turned to, what can I do to make sure that I provide the best that I can for these kids? And at the time, I wasn't in an entrepreneurial avenue. At that point, I was working for FedEx, and doing very, very well at that. But then I started thinking about, well, I need to branch out. I need to do other things. The life that I want to afford for my children are not going to be done through working for a large corporation. It might at the end of the day, but I'm going to have to sacrifice just like my dad sacrificed. So how can I create something that allows me to be there for my kids, watch them grow up, and provide them at least a somewhat stable and enjoyable life? And so that's kind of.
Let's dive into, I mean, I think the topic of being a child of successful people is something that that merits a deeper look. You know, my own father was an entrepreneur, so I grew up in a setting with entrepreneurial spirit. He had some great successes. He had some great failures. My son has shared with me that, you know, being my son can feel daunting.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, you know, as you were thinking, I mean, especially as a younger person, and as I'm thinking about in the context of maybe people in the audience who are the children of successful people. What
Yeah.
advice would you give them? I mean, what did you do, and maybe what would you have done differently now with the reflection of wisdom and age? What, as you think about it now, what do you think you got right, and what do you think you got wrong?
Oh, you always get stuff wrong, right? That's the science behind it. You're always going to get things wrong, and you're going to get some things right. Excuse me. And you want to build upon that. For me, being the child of someone who is successful really just meant that I knew it was possible, and that I could see I had an example there. Like, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't have that in their own communities or in their own households where they can say, oh, this person's a great success. There's a whole other topic about how you measure success, so that's another thing. But for me, it was more about, I just had that foundational knowledge and understanding that, you know what, if you wanted to do something, you can do it. Now it's just up to me to have the telemetry to go do that. And whether it's a blue jean company, or whether it's a radio show, or whether it's teriyaki sauce, or whatever you want to do, you really need to do it, because the success of someone else in your life, whether they're related to you or not related to you, at the end of the day means nothing if you don't do it yourself. And so to me, I was just like, all right, it's great to have that. And if you are the child of someone who's successful,
Is
awesome.
it great to have it, or does it feel like more pressure? I mean, you know, you're talking, I want to make you stop what I think you're doing right now, which is giving me the 30,000-foot view of it. Dig deeper, okay? As you're building your life, and you've got a father who accomplished big things and a great grandfather who accomplished big things. Is there pressure in that? I mean, and where did you feel it? Where did that pressure come into play in your life?
The only pressure that I felt, because all right, so my dad was very successful, but for me personally, he was a terrible dad, right? Because just wasn't there. So that for me, there was a lot of familial angst that went on with that. So that drove me to say, yeah, he's successful. I'm going to be successful in my own right, but I'm not him. He certainly isn't me. He doesn't know me. So I'm going to do whatever I can to be as successful as possible to my own standards, right? He did a lot of amazing things. He was a pilot in World War II. He created an international sailfish fishing competition. He's done he did amazing things. His resume was impeccable. But that's not my resume, right? So my resume is one that I need to build myself, and to really kind of sit back, take in what is important to me, what I want to accomplish, and then devise my own goals and go after them.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think in essence, what I'm hearing you say is, regardless of your origin story, make it your own story. It's frankly the advice I gave my son, who is incredible and going to accomplish amazing things in his life, but ultimately has nothing to do with me. I mean, the journey that he's watched me have sounds like, much like you, he could take some things from that journey, good and bad, and factor them into whatever choices he makes. But ultimately, our journey is our journey, and the only person we should seek to measure up to is ourselves and our own view of what is right and best. And that sounds like very much your way of thinking about it.
Yeah, 1,000%. Because really, if you're is your father still around?
Yes, he is.
All right.
Hi,
So
Dad. He's a big fan of yours, by the way. He thinks our voices sound very similar. He can never tell which of us is speaking, which is, but he's a big fan of yours.
I can give him a hint. First of all, you're not the one coughing. And secondly, you're the smarter one. So anything that's dumb, that's me, and you're the smart guy.
That is most certainly not true.
And Hardy of this whole relationship, Mr. Late Night Show.
Wait, which one of them was the skinny one? Was it Laurel or Hardy?
I don't Laurel? I'm not sure.
All right. Well, you know what? The first guest to send us an email and answer that question will win a Braving Business t-shirt.
There you go.
So send us an email. You could do it through our website, www.bravingbusiness.com, and let us know which one was the thin one, and you will win a t-shirt.
Google search and say, this is the easiest t-shirt I ever got.
It's okay. That's all right.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so back to your wonderful dad. If you went to your dad and said, hey, are you disappointed in me that I didn't follow in your footsteps? Exactly. That I am not you where you were at my age. I am willing to bet pretty much everything your dad would disagree with you and say, no, I'm not disappointed in you at all. You are who you are. I'm so proud to take a step back and watch you grow into the man that you've become, into the adult that you've become. And so that pressure, like my dad's my dad, right? He's going to be to some, he's going to be well loved, to others, loved not as much. And so, it's the whole Game of Thrones things, right? Like there is no black and white. Everyone's kind of gray. Everyone's got some great stuff going on. Everyone's got some not so great stuff going on. You have to make your own mark, and you just have to be yourself. My son all the time is like, oh, Dad, he lays superlatives on me all the time, which is wonderful and it's great. And I'll
deservedly so.
I'll give him like an hour to stop it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, dude, you don't understand. You are an amazing kid. If I was as cool as you are now, when I was your age, my God, I could be doing anything. Right. So I think that a lot of times we have a little cap that we put on ourselves because we're like, ooh, my parent is so great. My parent gave me such a great goal to go after. But at the end of the day, it's really our own journey that's going to be the most important thing. And if your parent loves you, which I'm sure your dad does, and I love my son, I don't want my son doing what I did. I want him to be something better and something happier that he's with. And at the end of the day,
you know what I mean? What I want for my son, my two daughters, my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law, all of whom I love dearly, is for them to be the best version of themselves and pursue whatever dreams they have professionally and personally. That's what I want for them. I don't look for my son or any of my children to measure up to anything other than their own standards for a life well lived. That's all I want for them. And I think that's why you and I have bonded so much. I was a guest on your podcast, What the Parent. And we share a lot of the same values, and I think that's why we become good friends. Let's pivot. Your linkage is not just about entrepreneurship. There's also other kinds of experiences that I would say, especially given the times, were quite daring. You shared in the pre-interview notes that your mom was a model and she featured in magazines, including Playboy.
Mm-hmm.
How did your mother's journey impact your approach to life and business? I mean, she's obviously a woman of courage. I mean, say what you will, to do what she did at that point, at that era, does take some courage.
It does. So let me preface this. She was in Playboy with all her clothes on.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's a little bit different. So it's fun to say my mom was a Playboy, but don't get creepy, right? That's my mom. So it's she was a beautiful woman, obviously, right? She was born in Hawaii, half Chinese, part Portuguese and French, right? So she's just just beautiful, and both inside and out. And with her, what mom actually really showed me was like, when I was growing up, I was born and raised in Palm Beach, right? So the proverbial, like, really, great spot to grow up as a in regards to like great community and having it safe and everyone very, very, very well off. Great. That was wonderful. But also my mom was from Hawaii, and she was from a family of 9. She was the youngest. Her family was so poor that she grew up in an orphanage down the street, right? So I had this yin and a yang, going back to my Chinese roots. I had this yin and a yang of, yeah, I could see what people can attain in society from a monetary standpoint. And then also mom would always take me back to her home and show me what it was like to be human, and what it was like to kind of grow up from literally having nothing to where she was at that time. And so she had a lot of courage, extremely strong person. She was as lovely as the day is long, had the biggest heart in the world. But at the end of the day, what her experiences taught her was that you just got to keep grinding, right? You just got to keep going. And so she was when she was growing up, and she went to high school, she married her high school sweetheart, very abusive marriage, unfortunately. And so she went through a lot. She's on the cover of magazines, but yet, she's getting beat up at home. And so it was a terrible time for her. But she really showed me that you have to persevere through everything, and you have to keep you can't get knocked down. Like, you will get knocked down, but you got to get up. And when you get up, don't dwell on being knocked down. You have to keep moving forward. And so she really showed me from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like, she gets into Playboy. She didn't know what Playboy was, right? This was like early 60s. Playboy was around for like 3 years when they did an expose on the girls of Hawaii. So she was in a bunch of different modeling things. So when she got approached, they're like, hey, do you want to be in Playboy? She's like, sure. And they took her to the Royal Hawaiian, and she's eating a papaya in a Chinese gown, right? Never asked her to take off her clothes. So she had no idea. She had no idea what the magazine was all about. And then when the magazine came out, she brought it home. She never opened it, brought it home, put it on the kitchen table. She was like, oh yeah, I was in this one as well. Huge shame in the family, right? Because you're like, what is this? But she took all those with a laugh and a wink, and moved on. And I think that
did you feel, I mean, when you were growing up, at what age did you learn about this, and did you feel shame about it?
Oh God, no, I never felt shame about it. I didn't feel shame about it because my mom owned it. Right. And I think that when you have accountability and you own whatever you do, well, then it gives you a tremendous sense of freedom. So yeah, mom, I knew about it from way before I knew what Playboy was, right? I would hear about it. Because back in Palm Beach, she was unique, right? She was Asian. She was beautiful. There wasn't really anyone around that was like her. And so she drew a lot of attention. And so I was just kind of used to that. I was like, okay, this is my mom. that's how she is.
I want to clarify. Was your father her second husband?
Yes.
Well, he was not the man who was
no,
her.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that the record stated that.
Thank you. Yes,
yeah, of course. Yeah. All right. So, you talked about the highs and the lows, and your mother teaching you the importance of getting up when you get knocked down. And obviously every entrepreneur, at least any entrepreneur that's in the arena for more than a minute, experiences highs and lows. And I know you had a very painful moment with Me Jeans. Ultimately the business failed.
Yep.
I want to do something in this episode that we haven't done yet, which is actually dwell on the moment of failure. And I know that might be a little painful. I know this is a painful thing for you.
Where's
but what I want? Yeah, well, do you have any Kleenex near you, just in case? Okay. You can use your shirt. But what I want to talk about is the moment where you realized that failure was inevitable, it's unavoidable. You've done everything you can. This business is failing. Talk to us about coming out of that. What was the process of emerging out of that dark moment?
Ooh, why you gotta do this to me, dude? It's too early in the morning for this. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't have to go there. I just think
no.
it'd be extremely helpful to the audience because this is
Sure.
what we're about. I mean, it's about coming out of these really low lows.
All right. So let's get into me jeans. Custom made blue jean company. I thought about because my boss, when I was at FedEx, made a comment on casual day saying, you know, I'm going to buy you an ass for Christmas. That's what he said. And I responded, A, it's weird that you're looking at my ass. B, it's not, it's like, B, it's not the jeans, right? Just because it looks saggy. It's not the jeans, or it's not me, it's the jeans, right? And so I was like, oh my God, I must have some weird body type. I must be an anomaly out there. And so I started looking into, you know, just different types of jeans. How does this fit a different type of body, and blah, 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 blah. And then I noticed that there were some custom made blue jeans sites out there, but they all sucked. And I was like, oh, well, shit, I can do that. Right. I can figure this out. I can market something better than that. And so that started a 3-year journey of me delving very deeply into the denim making process. And I found, you know, I talked to the largest textile manufacturer in Latin America, went down there, got a meeting with the president, sat there and convinced him that even though his factory made 50,000 pairs of jeans a day for all the top brands that you can imagine and globally, that, hold up, I want you to make one for me. And then I want you to make another one completely different, right? We're not just creating one pattern and stamping out thousands on this. I just need you to do one. And that was a very interesting conversation. But that's what started Me Jeans. And then I was like, all right, now I got to build a website. I got to do all this stuff. So it went really well. When it launched, October 21st of 2005, it was fantastic. I knew I had something because we kind of touched on this before. You got to do your market research. My market research was walking around asking people, how do you like those jeans? What do you like about them? How do they fit you? What would you change if there was something you could change, what would you change? Right. And then the high concept. Well, if I can make you a pair of jeans that look exactly the way that you want them to look and fit you the way that they're supposed to fit, would you buy that? And how much is it worth to you? And right. So these are the questions I would ask. And I was traveling all over really the globe for FedEx at the time. And, you know, I'm on planes. So I have a captive audience of the poor person who's sitting next to me. So I'm just going to bug him the whole flight or her the whole flight and just talk about jeans and get the taste of what the demand is out there. And so I went ahead and built this company, launched it, like I said, in 2005, all online. So it was a completely custom pair of jeans. Like there is 21 different fabric choices, 5 different zipper options, 10 different stitch color options, like it was absolutely as bespoke as you possibly can make them. And it launched. When it launched, I had 300 orders in hand of people that I had talked to who wanted it. I was never able to provide a sample of it because they're custom made blue jeans, right? I didn't even have denim swats at that time, but launched it, fulfilled those 300 orders. Word started getting out. By February of 2006, it was in the gift bags of the American Music Awards. It was in the gift bags of the Radio Music Awards. It was Wall Street Journal did a thing on it. It was in the Sacramento Bee, the Honolulu Advertiser, the LA Times wrote about it. The Independent on Sunday in the UK wrote about it. It was on the Today Show. It was on the early morning show on CBS. Like everything was like cranking. And I went from like 1 order a day, let's just say, to over 80 orders a day at a 77% profit margin. And it was fantastic. I built a little playground on my kid's school. I gave gobs of money to the American Red Cross because I wanted to build something that was all about giving back. And I always had this dream about, if you could make a lot of money and help people at the same time, then you've solved the Gordian knot, right? Like that's an amazing thing. And so I gave a lot to charity, and I did a lot of stuff that was awesome. And then even though I'm in supply chain, been in supply chain my entire career, I know everything about supply chain. I've forgotten more about supply chain than, a lot of people know. I can't control supply chain completely. And what I mean by that is I had thought of every possible nuance about shipping, about manufacturing, order fulfillment, the whole deal. I thought all this out, mapped it all out with, as much intricacy and detail as I could. But I didn't account for the World Trade Organization making vast global economic moves that would affect me, but was completely out of my purview. And so I was 2 weeks from retiring from FedEx. I wrote my resignation letter. I was ready to go. And the WTO changed its quotas and visas for denim out of India, China, and Pakistan. So what they did was they just did away with quotas. So from an importing standpoint, just really quick, from an importing standpoint, the US government has quotas on certain goods. I don't even know what the goods are anymore, but they used to have much stricter quotas. Some get let up, some are placed or in place. Those quotas are designed to protect US manufacturing. So in order to protect US manufacturing on denim, because there were denim manufacturers here in the US, there was a quota. You can only bring in an X amount per year. Well, when the WTO did away with quotas, the factory down in Mexico, who was making jeans for all of these great brands, that factory was charging probably $6 for a pair of jeans. In China, it's $1. So overnight, all of those brands pulled all of their volume, sent it to China, and overnight, my factory lost a third of its workforce. So now all of a sudden, it's not a selling, marketing, or demand problem anymore. Now it's a supply problem, because I have thousands of orders and no way to fulfill them. Right. So it was an absolute nightmare. It was just the worst.
And I'm sure that your first reaction to that nightmare was to, as most entrepreneurs in that setting, you have a business, you're trying to save it.
Yep.
You're doing this, you're doing that, you're trying this, you're trying that. At the point that you reached an understanding and, maybe whether you made your peace with it or you were floundered all the way to the last second, the point that you realized this thing's not going to work out.
Yeah.
How did you handle that moment? And how did you come out of that moment?
So that was a year later when I realized I went to one factory, sent them tens of thousands of dollars to get their lines up to have the manufacturing start. They made 3 pairs of jeans. I never heard from them again. Had to go to another factory, found a person that I hired, paid in cash down in Mexico, a lot of money to be me down there. And that person didn't follow up with the factory, and then didn't let me know that the factory didn't know how to make the jeans. And so she just kept getting her money. Factory wasn't fulfilling orders. It was a terrible thing. So at that point, I was like, I just got to close it down. It was very difficult for me because I was so incredibly wrapped up in this, right? I was the company. So it was a terrible, terrible blow to my psyche, to my pocketbook, right? Because I had to refund everyone their money, which was fine. But I mean, it was painful, right? It's a huge defeat, as big, and it was public. It was very public. So for me, right? Other people are like, who? But for me, it was public. And so it was it was very, very hard to go through. And I remember I was talking to a psychiatrist because I was like, I need some help processing this. And it took me a
No
long
shame in
time.
that whatsoever, by the way.
No, none.
It's what you
None.
should do if you're feeling emotional pain or any kind of
Yeah.
unsettlement, get help. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
what if you had a sprained foot?
Exactly. And so I went to her and I was talking to her about various things. I had a lot of stuff blowing up in my life at that time. And she was like, look, you know, you have to look at it as there are victories here, right? You got to cut yourself some slack. And I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, I failed, right? Like I failed. There's no, I can't, there's no other way for me to say that. You know, I didn't know about the WTO, but then again, that's on me, right?
I actually disagree. I mean, I hear you. You didn't fail. The business failed. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's that mindset of you failed. No, you didn't fail. You built a great business. Circumstances changed. The business ended up failing. You were successful for having done what you did and deserve the credit for at the moment of the business failing. You could have done what bad actors do, which is disappear with your customers' money, but you took the step of making sure your customers who could not be serviced receive their money back, which is something that you deserve a lot of credit for. So did she help you see that at some point? Do you see it now at least?
um, you know, yeah, kind of. It's still painful, right? Because that's it's the brass ring, right? I knew it. I had it. I was like, oh, this is mine. It's my idea. It's kicking ass. It's taking names. I am unstoppable. I mean, I had all kinds of stuff going on with it, you know, working with different universities, and I had a lot going on, and it was awesome. I also learned, side note, that even though this was a great idea of mine and I was the first one to market, as soon as I put it out there, someone else came out with the exact same idea. I had me jeans, they put out you jeans. I'm like, oh,
yeah. Well, you know, you're going to get copycats. I mean, I think the reality of it is that there are always either copycats or other people that are bright and have good ideas. It's about execution ultimately, or at least most of the time. You still need some luck. And ideally, the other side is not significantly better resourced than you. Let's talk about you mentioned, you know, the factory that made 3 pairs and disappeared. You mentioned the colleague in Mexico that ended up disappointing you. And in the pre-interview, you talked about just the challenges of being backstabbed, failed promises, relying on others. And I'm sure that stung a lot. I've been in those moments. I've had these things happen in my career. I've had people that I felt were very, very close allies, in some cases friends, and then turned out that they were not. Talk to me about just, again, braving that storm, the storm of realizing, you know what, I trust the people, they've let me down.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you just got to cut bait, right? Like I take full accountability for all of my actions, whether they're good or bad. But at the end of the day, I can't dwell on that. Was I pissed? I was unbelievably upset and hurt and crippled financially as well as emotionally by the whole thing. But I couldn't also just dwell on that because I have a family to feed, right? I pulled out all the money out of my house to fund this idea. And now at this time, the housing market is taking a tumble. Now I'm way underwater in my house because I did this, right? Like there's repercussions that I was living for a long time. And so you get by it by just focusing on that next step and saying, all right, okay, this all sucks. I can have a pity party for, you know, I give myself a day or an hour, whatever it is. And then you have to move on. Life goes on. Life hasn't stopped. I still got mouths to feed. I still have children to educate. I still have, you know, friends to be there for and allow my friends to be there for me and all that. So you just kind of refocus and get back towards the grind, whatever that grind is. I didn't do anything entrepreneurial for a while because
it's hard to, I mean, I've shared, obviously in the first episode of this podcast, I shared some of my stories, including a terrible setback, fairly late in my career. It cost me a lot of money. And probably impacted me in many of the same ways that I think Me Jeans impacted you in terms of feeling a sense of great failure and shame, and it's public. And I would, I don't want to rush through, and I don't want to get to just, at the end of the day, because at the end of the day is the easy part, right? When you reach the end of the day, then sure, then having that reflection of, well, at the end of the day, it's about X, Y, and Z. Sure. The challenging part, and the part that I want to help people through with Braving Business, is the part before the end of the day. And I can speak about that part openly. I can say that, I was clinically depressed.
Yeah.
And needed medication. I was very fortunate to have support. I wasn't as willing to share my feelings at the early. First of all, I don't know that I even fully understood them. I think I was in shock. But at the point that even I think I started to recognize what had happened to me, I still wasn't ready to share my feelings. It took some time. In hindsight now, it's been several years. I know I lucked into taking some good steps, whether it was starting the journal, which has been really helpful. Again, meditation, changing some circumstances in my life. But that period of time, it's dark.
Yeah.
And you're not sure that you're going to see the other side of the tunnel. I mean, you believe you will. And if you have obligations, and certainly children, you have to. Those moments, what were they like for you? I mean, you're getting up in the morning, the business has failed. Like you said, you're underwater on your mortgage. You feel shamed and exposed. How do you get through the day? I mean, what was the day by day strategy that got you through from one day to the next?
I mentioned whiskey, right? No, so it's realizing that the situation is greater than you, right? That, how do I say that? It's like you just have to keep going. You can't lie in your bed and curl up and cry. I mean, you can if you wanted to, allow yourself that, right?
And by the way, there's no shame in that. I mean, you may need that for a period. You may need to do exactly that.
Correct.
And that's okay.
And you're 1,000% right. There is no shame in that. But at some point, you have to keep going because the world keeps moving, right? And so you just have to get up and do it, right? Did I still want now? In my mind, I was checked out of FedEx. I'm like, see you guys later, right? Like, thanks for all the awards. It's awesome, but I want to move on. And having to go back, even though I didn't turn in my resignation letter, knowing that I wasn't going to be doing that anytime soon, that was a lot to kind of deal with. But you have to realize that you have no other choice. What am I going to do? Am I going to fall over and die? No, I can't do that. I got too many people relying on me. Do I wallow in this a little bit? Sure. Right. Again, pity party, have it, invite all your friends, deal with it. But life still goes on. I still have things I need to accomplish. So I would just try to then, hey, first of all, let me make sure that I'm as good as gold on my FedEx side of things, that I'm the job that I have, thank God, the job that I had at the time, I could still be very productive at and continue building the great book of business that I had. And eventually, actually, after that is when I started winning all of my awards. So it gave me a little bit of purpose, dive back into work kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But eventually you get to understand, all right, that was an amazing experience. Don't know how great it was. It was hard to go through, but I'm glad I did it. If that makes any sense.
Right. No, it makes complete sense. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if we are to step to the end, we are the product of our experiences. That may sound cliched, but again, as we've said on this podcast before, cliches are cliches for a reason. There's a degree of truth to it.
Yeah.
When you get to the other side, you're wiser. You may not be wealthier, maybe quite to the contrary, but you are wiser. And I'll tell you one thing, then I will freely share, and then I hope would be helpful to people is that I learned that our minds ruminate, which, again, we all know that, right? Our minds are almost like a chicken coop that's been hit by a baseball club, right? There's a lot of feathers flying around and a lot of sounds. But if you're able to recognize that you're ruminating, the thoughts are just coming at you, and they may be thoughts about shame, they may be thoughts about guilt, they may be thoughts about anger. I learned that being able to recognize the emotion, to identify the feeling and say, I am feeling anger. Okay. To just give it that word. And then to do a couple things. One, realize it's just a feeling. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
It's going to pass. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's step one. And step two, don't try to fight it. Don't try to rationalize it. Don't try to excuse it. Feel it. Actually, the best advice I ever got was when you get to that point where you at least recognize what emotion you're feeling, feel it. Allow yourself to feel it. Essentially tell yourself, I'm going to be feeling anger right now. And the incredible thing is if you do that, it doesn't take very long. It takes 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. You feel a little lighter. I don't know how that happens, but I can tell you, I still use that repeatedly. I used it this weekend, right? There were some things going on the global stage that caused me to have to really dig deep, right? And I reached for that. I'm choosing not to discuss those things on the podcast because that's just not relevant to the podcast. But to those of you who know me, I'm Israeli, and some things happen in my country that are quite painful. Yes. But ultimately, I think being able to name an emotion or name a feeling, feeling it and letting it pass through you, essentially letting the energy of it pass through you, was extremely helpful to me in some very dark moments. And it would be, I didn't know it from the go, right? I didn't know this skill when I was just going through the earlier stages of dealing with the fallout of failure. I learned it later. When I learned it, it turbocharged my ability to recover and move forward.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to share it, because I think that's something that I found very impactful, that I'd urge people to consider, is being able to recognize it's just a feeling. The feeling is X. Don't try to modify it. Don't try to fight it. Don't just feel it. Let's pivot. Let's talk about your Shark Tank experience. I'd love to hear about it, first of all. I know it didn't quite go as hoped. I don't believe it ever aired, right? You did an episode. Nope. It didn't quite work out. Tell us about the experience, first of all. And if was there any, did you learn anything from that experience? Or was it just something you can look back at now and laugh at a little bit?
No. Don't laugh at that at all. It was a tumultuous time in my life. That was 7 years after I had closed down Me Jeans. My friends had told me for a long time, oh, you should be on Shark Tank. You should do that, right? You're great in front of people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, okay. I didn't like Shark Tank because there were just like a bunch of bad ideas getting money. And that kind of pissed me off because I was like, I actually had a really good thing. So 7 years forward, I'm going to sleep and I just happen to have the evening news on, and they say, oh, by the way, because I'm in Chicago, they say, by the way, tomorrow at the Shed Aquarium, Shark Tank interview start at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't have, no preparation. I went down, woke up at 4 or something, got down to Shed Aquarium at 5, stood in line for 7 hours to give a 1-minute pitch. And so, I'm there, I'm writing it out on my phone because I don't know, I just don't know what I'm up against. I never watched the show, so I'm not exactly sure. At that point, I never watched the show. So I was like, all right, I'm going to write out this thing. There are people that bring in, examples of what their products are. They got fans, they got people with, holding up signs and all this other kind of stuff. And me just schlepping in. So I knew that you had a minute to give your pitch. After I was talking to producer for 5 minutes, I knew that there was something there. They tell you that, hey, we're going to reach out to you within the next 3 weeks. If you don't hear from us after 3 weeks, thank you for your time, but you're not selected. I heard from them in 3 days, and they were like, hey, we want you to make a video. All right. So, talking about your product. My kids were really young at that time, so I made a video of them holding a press conference and me answering questions from my kids, which is adorable. And it worked, right? So they're like, great, you're on. That year was really bad for me. I was that was the beginning of my divorce. That was my mom passing away suddenly. I had lost my job. So there was like a lot of things going on all at once during that time. So to go on Shark Tank was like my life buoy, right? I knew I could grab onto that because I had already proven this business concept. I had already proven that it was going to do really, really well. All I needed, well, actually, I didn't really need, well, the funding would have been great because I didn't have the funding to do it anymore. But also B, the cachet of having these people involved would have been amazing just to get the word out, because I'd accomplished all of what I did just on guerrilla marketing, right? So then I'm like, holy crap, if I can have a budget to actually market this, I would do great. So it was hard. What I learned from that is TV is for TV. They're not there to help businesses, they're there to make a show. They're not there to actually prop up businesses for the long term. Can that happen? Yes. But at the end of the day, they're an entertainment company. And so that's what they're trying to do. And so the takeaways from that were, you got to go for it. If you have the opportunity, you got to go for it. Right. I didn't really want to go through the whole Me Jeans thing again, but I was like, you know what, though, I could do it. I know how to do it. Technology has progressed now that it will allow me to avoid the bottlenecks that I knew of in the manufacturing process. So this is all good. It's great timing. Let's just go ahead and do it. But it taught me that, again, you have to be accountable, kind of what you were talking about. You have to own it. You have to be in the moment, but also it taught me to really stand up for myself in a way. Because, afterwards, I won't go through the whole story because it's a long story, but I failed miserably. I just bombed out. It was terrible. And so afterwards, when you get back to when you bomb, I only know my experience, but when you bomb as terribly as I did, there was a psychiatrist in the trailer.
In what way did you bomb? I mean, what does that mean? Did you forget your lines? Did you freeze?
Yeah, so that was the thing, right? I've been in sales my whole life. So when I know a pitch, I'm just going on autopilot. And then normally my ADHD kicks in and I'm thinking about, Mark Cuban's taller than I thought and whatever, right? Like I'm just thinking. And I mentioned early in my pitch that I'm from Chicago, and Lori Grenier, I always forget how to say her name. She's like, yay, Chicago. Because I think she has ties to Chicago. And I was like, yay, Chicago. And then as soon as I said that, I lost my pitch. I was like, I forgot. But there's no, hey, can we pause? Can I start again? Right. You just have to go. And so then I started talking about it, but I'm not on my pitch anymore. And so in my head, I'm like, am I talking about jeans? Is this making sense? Right. Like I'm just, all the self-doubt comes in. And then I find the second part of my pitch and I'm on my heels, but then they started asking a whole bunch of questions. And I was so confident that I was going to do well. I never thought about someone saying no, as dumb and naive as that is. It wasn't even in my atmosphere, because I was trending towards 3.5 million in sales, working part-time, a fat guy in his underwear, creating this company, only one person, no overhead. How can, at a 77% profit margin, who wouldn't want in on that? And so when I got my first no, I was like, what? Like I was not prepared. I think that was the other thing that taught me, like, be prepared. And so like, and then, I got, Cuban was very kind. He was very nice. Mr. Wonderful was not wonderful. And, said some pretty hurtful things. And so when I left, and the guy that I really wanted was Damon. And when he said no, his statement was that the reasons why he was saying no was like, lots of overhead and lots of inventory carrying and all that other kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, clearly you didn't hear anything I said, because there is no overhead. But at that point, he already said no. So now I'm done with that. So it was a lot to deal with. So when I got back to the trailer, there was a person there. Clearly, I must have been frustrated or downtrodden or shell shocked, probably all three. There was a person there, and she was like, "Wow, that was rough." And I was like, "I would really appreciate if you don't show that, really." And she was like, she's like, "Oh, don't worry, it wasn't that bad." And I'm like, "Well, I just don't want my kids to see how terribly I just failed." And she said, "Oh, no, don't, things aren't that bad. Like you beat out, what did she say? You beat out 40,000 people to be here." I was like, "Oh, great. I beat out 40,000 people to make an ass of myself in front of 17 million. Woohoo. Yay for me." And she said, "Well, things aren't really that bad." And then I went into it like, "Well, I just lost my mom. I lost my career. My marriage is falling apart. I just saw my dreams fall apart. So, what do you got?" And that was rock bottom for me, right? That was the lowest day of my life. And when I walked out from there and I went to the hotel to take my flight home, that I've never felt that alone, and I'd never felt that unsure of what tomorrow would bring, because everything was wrapped in that room because of my divorce and that was my, like I said, my buoy, right? So when all that happened, I went to the hotel and I was just like, I've never felt so adrift. I've never felt this terrible before. Closing my company was bad. That was terrible. That was on me, and I felt terrible about it. This was somehow much worse. And you just wake up and you're like, all right, I don't know what's coming down the pike, and it's probably going to hurt, or it might not. There's going to be some great times ahead. There's going to be some really shitty times ahead. I just have to roll the punches, and I just have to move forward. And so that's kind of how I did.
Yeah, I first of all, thank you for sharing all that with me and with the audience. I think there are a lot of people that will benefit from your candor and relate. Whether it's failed business or failed marriage or just the challenges of life. It's not easy to be human, no matter what journey you're on. And everyone, this is one reason why I strive to be as kind as I can all the time, which is that you just don't know what journey people are on.
Yeah.
You don't know where they are in that journey. And life can be really, really challenging. And in those moments, it does feel very lonely, and it is hard to see, the light at the end of the tunnel, proverbially. And yet, and you are the embodiment of that, as am I, as are practically all of us, the bad days do pass. And, the lowest of the low days give way to slightly better days, who give way to slightly better days, and so on and so forth, until one day you realize, hey, you know what? I'm okay.
Yeah.
And, regardless of whether it's because of a setback professionally or setback personally, if you're listening and you're on the painful side of this pendulum.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you. I wish I could. First, I send you a hug and my affection, and second, I would say to you, you know what? This too shall pass. You will look back at this from the other side, as PJ does, as I do, and you'll realize that, you know what? I needed to go through that journey to get to where I am now. PJ, you have since met and married an incredible woman.
Oh yeah.
Your life is better than it was in
Yes.
every imaginable way.
Very much. Yes.
When you were getting back to that hotel, feeling so adrift, could you have ever imagined the life that you have now?
No, no. And that's the thing that tomorrow's another day allows you to close the chapter on whatever terrible, horrible day you just went through. Right. And so I think that recognizing that you went through something and then hoping that there's going to be something better on the other side. And it doesn't have to be the next day, right? Because the next day wasn't all that great either. But you just got to keep plodding forward. And you're right. You just don't know what's coming ahead. I am now living a life that, I am more fulfilled and happier and at peace than I've ever been. And when this was happening over 10 years ago, I could not have imagined that. And so this is you're right. It's a blessing for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot. Let's we've managed to probably sell some Kleenex over the last 30 minutes. Let's talk about humor for a bit.
Yes,
so you're a hilarious guy. The audience has had a chance to appreciate that, I'm sure, if they've listened to some of our past episodes. But I have to ask you, DJ Saucy Loins? Where the hell is that from? What's the story behind that nickname?
Well, it's just me being irreverent. So I am a part of an award-winning barbecue team. We are known as Diabolical Pig Barbecue. And we all started this is all just neighborhood dads that got together. I, by far, am the worst cook on this crew, by far, but I do bring a lot of utensils and I supply the music, and I drink better than any of them. So there are things that I contribute. But we all had to come up with names. Like, we were all going to name ourselves things. And I just loved Saucy Loins. And then I was like, I just want to be known as Saucy Loins. But then I figured DJ in the front of it sounded even better. So I'm DJ Saucy Loins.
I love that. What kind of music does DJ Saucy Loins play?
Really, mostly I would listen to, I listen to everything, right? Anything from jazz and R&B to metal. But I think Tool's probably my favorite band.
I would not have seen that. PJ, I want to tell you, as we wind down, the impact you've had on my life. I met you when I was starting up a company that ended up not being successful. And at the time I was riding high and had a lot of high hopes and raised money from some incredible people, really believed in the product. You and your wife were generous enough to have me on the podcast, and you were very kind, and you and I have stayed in contact, and you've encouraged me to consider podcasting, and I ultimately dove in.
And kicking ass, by the way. You're doing great.
Well, thank you. We both are. This podcast, to those of you that don't know, is rated in the top 3% globally, which we're incredibly proud of, out of 3.2 million podcasts, according to Listen Notes.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. But, in truth, the experience of working with you and seeing the person that you are is deeply inspiring to me, just as a human being, as a professional, as a dad, as a husband. You are incredible.
Well,
and I want to say that to you. We usually have you asking the last question, which is, given that resilience is the common thread that brings together Braving Business. If you had to give a budding entrepreneur or someone that's considering entrepreneurship one piece of advice rooted in your own experiences to help them remain resilient as they face adversity, what would it be?
I thought about this one a lot. and then of course I forgot it all. You have you made me think though a lot about certain things during this episode, which I really appreciate. I think one of the things is just be human, right? If you strive to be the best human you can be every day, then I don't see how anything could be a total failure, right? Like as long as you're out there and you're striving and you just treat people well, and it doesn't matter who they are, because that was the thing that I had learned. You just treat everyone the same. Everyone's the same. We all take showers the same. We all put on our socks the same. It doesn't matter. So
I don't wash my feet. I'll admit that. So I don't know that we all take showers the same. I just let water drip and soap, and then that's it.
There are certain things that I really want to know about you, and then there's certain things I don't.
Where would that fall? Which category? Never mind.
Let's do the latter. Anyway, so but at the end of the day, you just try to be the best person that you are, right? I think if I was going to tell entrepreneurs, just go, right? Just the last thing you ever want to do is live with regret. And the last thing you ever want to do is, gosh, I wish I did that. Luckily, I don't have to say that. I have tried things, and I have been backslapped and burned and backstabbed and all kinds of stuff. Did you
say backslapped or backstabbed?
I said both, actually.
Oh, okay.
I saw the slap and then I saw the stab, whatever. It's like a ninja move. Anyway, I've been through those experiences, but if I didn't try them, then that's always just going to be some kind of nagging mystery that's hanging out there. So just go for it. Case in point, my gorgeous wife, we were at a book conference, and there was some everyone fawns all over everyone, right? She had people coming up saying, "Oh my gosh, I love your work," fellow authors, and she had people that she really admired, and she was like, "I can't go up there." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Go!" Like, they're right there. They're a human being. Just go for it. Just stand up, go, because that's the only opportunity you have. So if you have an opportunity, if you have something in your hand that you're like, you know what, I truly believe this is my next step, this is my dream to fulfill, this is the thing that I want to do, then work at it. And don't be dissuaded, because I got a lot of naysayers. There's always naysayers. Some are people really close to you, and some are people you never heard of. There's always going to be naysayers. You just got to go. If you have the conviction within you, do it, and just take that step and work it, and work out all the kinks. And if it's successful, it's all on you. And if it's not, it's all on you, but you tried. And that's, I think, the most important thing people need to keep in mind.
DJ, that was as always, both wise and entertaining, particularly with the backstabbing and backslapping. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for this interview. We received a lot of requests from people that listened to the first episode, who wanted to also hear your story. So I'm glad we're getting to do that. We'll see. We'll have to decide. Maybe this will be the bookend to season 1. Maybe this will be the last episode of season 1. We'll have to think about that. But I also want to thank our audience, for making us a top 3% global podcast. It's an incredible privilege. We are so deeply humbled and appreciate all the support we're getting. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate it wherever you're listening, wherever you're streaming. It helps us tremendously when our episodes are rated, to encourage other people to take a look and take a listen. Follow us on social media. We have a Facebook group. We have a LinkedIn group. Of course, our website, www.bravingbusiness.com, where you can subscribe to our blog. We are truly grateful. And Peter John, until we meet again.
Tal, thank you for your friendship, buddy. Thank you for inviting me on this incredible journey. To anyone who is hearing my terrible voice, thank you for being a part of this and really making us part of your day. It's been an incredible honor, and it's been a fantastic journey, and just love it. So thank you.